So we are again in Studio BEA5 of the Institute of Sonology at the Royal Conservatoire in The Hague. This is a studio with analog equipment mostly, equipment to do sound synthesis based on voltage control techniques. And one of the features of this studio is that it also has a large number of highly professional analog tape machines by the Swiss brand Studer. It's the best you can get. Now that brings us to the question, why do we have all those tape machines here? Well, one very important reason is that Sonology has a large tape archive with electronic music production tapes from the 1950s until the end of the 80s, when this recording format became more or less obsolete. Another reason is that there are production techniques in this studio in which an analog tape machine can have an interesting function. And the third reason is pure nostalgia. It is because sometimes students and sometimes also teachers just like to work with these kind of machines. Tape machines work with tape, that's obvious. And there are various tape formats and there are various tape speeds. Yeah? So by tape speed I mean the speed with which the tape passes the head of the tape machine. The standard for magnetic recording was more or less defined in the 1940s, and it hasn't really changed since then. We have tapes of originally 1/4 inch width, so that means that if I have the tape like this, that this width here is 1/4 of an inch. Initially, tape was mono. I mean, the tape itself is nothing, yeah, but the tape machines were mono. And that means that this whole tape was recorded in one direction with one track. So that's a full track mono recording. And the tape speed was in the beginning 30 inch per second or 76.2 centimeter per second. That's a very high tape speed. You don't see it nowadays, although machines that play back and record at this speed still exist. And we have tapes in our archive that are recorded at this speed, so we need machines that are able to play those tapes back still. A famous example is, for instance, the tapes of Edgar Varèse's Poème électronique, which are in our archive. Very soon after this tape standard was defined, the tape speed went down to half of this speed, to 15 inch per second or 38.1 centimeter. For two reasons. There was an economic reason, because tape was and still is expensive. So at a high speed you use more tape for a certain amount of recording time. And the second reason is that you want to record, for instance, a whole movement of a symphony. Yeah? So with a speed of 30 inch per second, even with a full reel of tape, you have a recording time which is around 15 minutes, which is very often too short. So by going to 15 IPS, you double the amount of recording time and you reduce the costs of the recording by half. And another thing that was introduced relatively quickly was the stereo recording format. So that means that now you would have a tape on which there are two tracks, a left track and a right track. The tape itself is the same, yeah? So the tape doesn't have two tracks. The fact that the tape has two tracks is the result of two-track recording heads. Now, if you then go further in the development, there was the need to do multi-track recordings. So already in the 50s, experiments were done, and also the first professional and commercial models saw the light, on which you could record 4 tracks. And these 4-track machines initially had a track width of 1 inch. And on this 1 inch there are then 4 tracks. So that is basically 4 times the width of a mono 1/4 inch tape. And the quality of this is fantastic. We have Studer machines in the studio that record 4 tracks on 1 inch still, and we also have tapes in the archive. Unfortunately, after that, the quality of magnetic tape recording went downhill. Not in the studios, not in the radio stations, but for tape machines that people were that could afford themselves to buy at home. So very soon you see, for instance, tape machines that record on a 1/4 inch tape, but on this 1/4 inch tape there are now 4 tracks, 2 in this direction and another 2 in this direction. So you can already tell what a compromise that is compared to the original mono 1/4 inch standard. And what's worse, they also reduced the tape speed. So the tape speed went down from 15 inch to 7.5 inch to 3.75 inch even. Now if you look at a cassette deck, that's the worst format you can imagine, because it's only half of this, and then there are still 4 tracks and the tape speed is also very low. Now the last 2 tape formats I want to mention are 8 tracks on 1/4 inch. Yeah. Oh, sorry, on 1 inch, of course. So that's basically 4 times a stereo tape. And then you also have 16 and 24 tracks on 2 inch. Yeah. Those are the professional standards. Anything else than that, for instance, 16 tracks on 1 inch, 16 tracks on 1/2 inch you have even, all those formats I would consider to be unprofessional. If we look at a tape machine, we recognize a couple of things. There is a supply reel, there is a take-up reel, and then the tape goes from the supply reel to the take-up reel and it passes the heads. Now on a professional tape machine you have an erase head, you have a recording head, and you have a playback head. That's a free head tape head configuration. All professional tape machines have a head configuration like this. It is an important feature of a professional tape machine because it allows you to directly listen to the tape while you are recording it. Yeah? In digital technology that doesn't play a role because you're just sure that what comes out is identical to what goes in. There are people who say that is not true, but I'm not interested in those arguments. On a tape recorder, however, there are all kinds of reasons why the sound that comes back from the tape might not be identical to what goes in. Distortion plays a role, tape noise plays a role, tape speed fluctuations play a role, frequency characteristics play a role, the heads might be dirty, which influences the recording quality dramatically. All those things need to be taken into account while you are making an analog tape recording. So what do I mean by listening to the recording? It means that you can record on the tape here, and while you are recording you can already listen to the playback head. And this of course happens with a certain amount of delay. This delay time is determined by the tape speed and the distance between those two heads. On a non-professional tape machine there are usually 2 heads. One for erase and one for either recording or playback. So that means that you are using that head during the recording to record the sound, and then when you play back the tape you use the same head for the playback. This is again a compromise. First of all, these heads cannot be optimized for one of those 2 functions when there is only one head to do both. And the other thing is that you cannot have after tape monitoring in that way. So that's a problem. In this studio all the tape machines have free head configurations. Let's have a look at the tape machines themselves. So this is a Studer A80 RC Mark II stereo tape machine. First thing we need to do is to turn the machine on. And we do that with the switch over here. This switch has 3 positions: off, which is obvious, it means that the machine is off. Then I can go to the speed 7.5 inch, and I can go to the speed 15 inch. And as I mentioned before, 15 inch is the professional standard, so I'm going to use that tape speed. The other speed is nice to have, for instance, when you want to transpose something down an octave. Yeah? So that means you can record something on 15 inch per second and then play it back at half speed, which means that the sound that you have recorded will become twice as long and will sound 1 octave down. The other thing is of course also possible. You can record at 7.5 and then play back at 15, which means that your sound will be twice as short and it will sound an octave higher. Now, here we see the head configuration that I was mentioning. So there is the erase head, which in this case is a full track erase head. So that means that I can't make separate recordings on the left or the right channel. Then there is a recording head and then there is a playback head. This thing here is a head shield, which needs to be there, and it only should be taken off when you want to clean the heads. Now I'm going to thread the tape onto the machine. So here is the supply reel. Now I follow the lines that are here on these rollers here. These are so-called tape tension controllers. They measure the tape tension and they make sure that it keeps the tape tension constant, that the machine keeps the tape tension constant. So this is the right way to thread the tape. Yeah? So not like this. That's absolutely wrong. So we go to the utmost left roller first, then we follow the line, then we take the next roller, and then we go on like this. Here we do the same. Then we go to the pickup reel, and now the tape is perfectly threaded on the machine. And I can press play. I can fast forward, like this. I can rewind. I can edit. So that means that now I have this knob and I can search for a certain part on the tape. The counter gives me an indication of the time, so in minutes and seconds. And it also has a very nice feature, which is that I can press the zero knob. So now the counter is set at 0 at this particular point. So let's say that I have made a recording of a couple of minutes, and that I want to return to the point where the recording started. The only thing I have to do is press lock, and the machine will find that spot for me. There is a scissor over here. Be careful with that, because if you press edit and you then press this knob here, that means that you cut the tape. Yeah? So that's if you want to splice 2 recordings together. Splicing was an elementary tool in production of electronic music for decades. Yeah? What we are used to do now on the computer, making cuts of sounds, splicing them together with little crossfades and so on, all those things had to be done manually on tape machines before computer technology was there. Okay, let's record something. So in the first instruction film that we made here, you saw an explanation of the mixing desk. So I'm not going to explain this again. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the sound from the CD player on the loudspeakers first. Yeah. And now I need to send the sound from the mixing desk to the tape machine. So you won't find the connections of the tape machines on the patch bay. The tape machines are directly connected to the mixing desk. So how do I send the signal from the desk to a machine? That's very simple. We have a 4-channel machine over there. The first one records from group faders 1, 2, 3 and 4 on the mixing desk. The second 4-channel machine records from group faders 5, 6, 7 and 8. And then we go on, we arrive at the first stereo machine, it records from group fader 1, 2. Then we go to the second stereo machine, it records from group fader 3 and 4, and the third one from 5 and 6, that's obvious. So to send the sound from the CD not directly to the speakers but to this tape machine, I'm going to press group faders 1 and 2 here. Group faders 1 and 2 are opened here. And then here you will find the Studer machines, their returns. So that means that on this stereo channel, tape machine number 1 is coming back. So if I now press left and right here, and I'm going to the machine, I'm going to press play and record simultaneously, and I'm going to start the CD player. So I'm now hearing the signal after it has been recorded. Now I'm hearing an echo. The reason for this echo is that I'm hearing the original sound and the playback from the machine together. If I send the output of the tape machine back into the tape machine, I'm hearing multiple echoes because the sound is now recorded, played back and sent back to the recording. If that level becomes too high, I start to hear a kind of infinite echo, and at a certain moment it will even go into distortion. This is, by the way, also a little check that you can make, because if the sound stays identical while it is repeating, it means that the machine is calibrated very well. Yeah, if the sound would become higher and higher and higher, or sharper and sharper, I should say, that would mean that the machine reproduces more high frequencies than that there were in the original recording. If it would get duller and duller and duller while repeating, it would mean that the machine is not giving enough high frequencies back. The second tape machine in this studio has an interesting extra feature, which is a variable speed control. I already mentioned transposition, meaning that I could go up an octave up or an octave down. But with this machine, I have continuous tape speed control. So if I would do the same example that I just did with the echo, yeah, I'm now going to send it to the second tape machine. I'm hearing the same echo now, but when I turn on the variable speed here, I have control over the delay time, because when I speed up the tape, the delay time between the recording and the playback have become shorter. If I combine the two machines, I can use the variable speed option of the second machine to create an effect which is called tape flanging, or tape phasing. People use the same term, or the both terms for the same thing. So what does that mean? So I have now here one delay time between the recording head and the playback head, and I here have a second machine also with a recording head and a playback head. If the variable speed is off and both machines run at the same tape speed, 15 inch, then the delay time between the recording head and playback head here and the delay time here is practically identical. But when I change the tape speed of this machine, I gradually change the delay time of this machine in relation to this machine. And that will cause phase cancellation effects. And these phase cancellation effects occur in a frequency range which is depending on the tape speed, on the difference between the delay times between the two machines. Why is that? Let's give an example. If we have a sine wave, so a waveform like this, which alternates between plus and minus, we can do something with this signal, which is to invert the phase. And inverting the phase means that the signal will now start to look like this. So it is mirrored. If the amplitudes and the frequencies of these two signals are identical and I sum them, then the result is zero. Because this minus part exactly cancels this positive part. Now, instead of inverting the phase, I can create a similar situation with a delay. So if I would delay this signal in such a way that the delay time is half the time of this waveform or a multiple of it, then I just move it in that direction and there will be moments where this signal is exactly out of phase. But of course we are not recording sine waves, we are recording complex sounds. So sounds that consist of many different frequencies simultaneously. So that means for every delay time there is a certain frequency range which will be cancelled. And when moving that range, I will hear this phase cancellation effect moving through the spectrum, which is a very strong effect, and it was discovered in the 50s and it is still used especially in pop music productions very often, although of course mostly with digital simulations instead of with real tape machines. So let's see if we can do that. Okay. Yeah? So for my demonstration I'm going to use pink noise. And as we have seen in the demonstration film of filters, pink noise is a signal that is available on the patch bay. There it is. Now I'm going to send this pink noise signal to both tape machines. So I need to press here 1, 2, and 3 and 4. And I open all those faders. And now I'm going to first turn off this variable speed. And I'm going to record on both machines. And I'm going to listen to the returns of the two machines while being summed on the mixing desk. I already hear a very strong effect, because what I said here is that these times are identical. That's of course theoretical, because there are small tape speed variations, and all these effects, all these affect the resulting sound immediately. Now I'm going to do the same, but not with the pink noise from the noise oscillator, but with the sound from the CD that we had just now. So I'm starting to hear kind of pitches, and these pitches are the result of the distance between the two delays. That was it for today. The next instruction film will be about ring modulation. I will record it in a week from now or so. So thank you for watching and see you.